Board members, are we satisfied?
Yes, sir.
Then if there are no other, if there are no suggestions or changes to the minutes, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Emily, seconded by
Second.
Ron.
Second.
Oh, Dion, to approve the minutes of July 7th, 2020 and July 14th, 2020 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Perez, recognitions.
Yes,
Any
sir.
recognitions tonight?
No, sir, Mr. President, Board. There are a lot of heroes and a lot of good people doing a lot of good work out there, but we do not have anyone specific to recognize this evening.
All right, thank you. V, citizens to address the board. Any citizens who wish to address the board can do as Mr. Perez said. We give you approximately about 3 minutes to communicate to us. The board is not in a position to respond to any comments made at that time, but the superintendent will follow through with anything that needs to be dealt with. Mr. Perez, who is requesting to address the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. This evening we have Mr. Sean Ray to address the board.
Mr. Ray, are you available?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Oh,
I-
so that's a
I
very
have,
beautiful, very beautiful picture.
Yeah, these are my grandkids. They're actually staying with us now, and I appreciate everybody allowing us to speak real quick. I'm actually addressing the board on behalf of the governor of Pueblo Laguna, and he wanted to ask that we just keep everybody engaged, keep the students, the parents engaged, and also to keep everybody as informed as we possibly can. Also, too, he wants to thank the board, you guys, for coming, and Superintendent Perez for coming to the tribe to speak to us about the re-entry plan. It was a pretty good plan, and he just wanted to acknowledge that all the hard work that went into it and efforts that went into that document. And he was very grateful that everybody had that opportunity to handle this. So again, these are my grandkids. My oldest granddaughter, she's registered with LA. She's gonna be a 9th grade. And then Zamina in the back, she's gonna be Cibola, 3rd grade. And then this is Alia, she's gonna be in kindergarten this year. So I'll bet Cibola. So thank you, board. I appreciate all your time and efforts. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perez, action items. Oh, presentations.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, board members. We had a legislator online. I think he's trying to get on now. Representative Harry Garcia wanted to give the board an update on the last special session. I think there might be some difficulty on him getting hooked up here, but
Board members, if you don't mind, let's continue on to the agenda, and then when you will let us know when he may be able to be online, Mr. Perez.
yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Action items.
Moving on to the first action item, we have the service contract with TLC. They do a lot of our plumbing and mechanical work in the buildings. This is a contract. We had a contract with them last year. This is a contract proposing for this coming school year. So, Mr. President, I do recommend that we approve this, but I have Mr. Vance Lee to give some details on this.
Please.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Perez. The contract is a renewal of a contract that we've had in place for about 1.5 years. They support all of our school facilities in the area of plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. This is a service contract. in that it is not not necessarily an on-call for things that break, but it's more of a contract for our preventative maintenance, cleaning filters, taking care of motors that run our equipment and so forth. So if we do have equipment that fails on us, then we do work with them as well, but not all of that falls under this contract. So.
Is this a year contract, Vance, or 2 years?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Is that a year contract or a 2-year contract?
No, this is a 1-year contract. Actually, a year and a half ago, we entered into a contract with them in a February, and we went for a full year. And if you'll remember back in February, we only wanted to do a short-term contract that got us to our fiscal year. So this will be a July to June contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Mr. Pettis,
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend approval of this action item.
is there a motion to approve?
So move.
So moved by Dion to approve the contract with TLC. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ron Ortiz. This will be a roll call vote to approve services contract with TLC as presented. Take the roll, Ms. Colby.
Yes. Emily McDaly,
Yes.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dion Sandoval,
Yes.
and Guy Archambault.
Yes. The motion passes. Thank you. Extend our appreciation to TLC, and we hope that we will be successful again this coming year. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. President, Board, the next action item is the New Mexico School Board Association Policy Services Advisories 206, 207. And this is the second read. This was presented at the last regular board meeting as a first read. And this evening, I'd like to ask the board to approve these advisories so we can put them in place into our policy system. And I have Mr. Toivanen to give us an overview.
Mr. Toivanen.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Pettis, thank you for the opportunity. So as I had mentioned at the last regular board meeting that Secretary of Ed DeVos had revised Title IX. This just, these advisories keep us in compliance with that. It defines sexual harassment and again, prevents discrimination on the basis of sex, and also sets pathways for employees and students to report possible violations of Title IX. This will keep us in compliance, and it is recommended that the board approve this.
Is that two advisories or just one?
It's two advisories, Mr. Chair, 206 and 207. But they both deal with Title IX.
Yes. Any questions from the board? This is considered to be a very important policy. We hope that we will implement this faithfully. There may be changes in the years to come, but this is the one that we have to implement for Title IX. Those of you who are interested in this, continue to examine this particular policy as it relates to the issues that that are stated in the policy service advisory. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir. President Board, I recommend that the board approve the policy advisories 206 and 207.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion is made by whom?
Ron Ortiz.
Ron Ortiz, okay. And seconded by
Second.
Dion Sandoval to approve the NMSBA Policy Services Advisories 206-207 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dion Sandoval,
Yes.
Guy Archambeau.
Yes, motion passes. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. Before we move on to the consent agenda, I'd like to ask, I see that Representative Garcia is on. If I can move back to the item 6 on legislative update. And welcome Representative Garcia. If the board asks if wanted to touch base and see what's happening in Santa Fe. This arose originally a request to see what happened at the short special session, and I gave the best synopsis that I could, but I appreciate hearing it directly from legislator.
Mr. Garcia, welcome. We appreciate you attending our board meeting and whatever words of advice and information that you can provide to us on what transpired with the New Mexico State Legislature, we'd appreciate it. So the floor is yours, Mr. Representative Garcia.
Go ahead.
You need to unmute.
You unmuted? Maybe that's him over here. I don't know. I hate to help.
Have him unmute, Max.
Yeah, it's not unmuting for some reason. Is that him over here too? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Right there. Down at the bottom.
That doesn't look like
You need to text him to unmute.
You should be able to unmute him here.
Yeah.
Here, unmute on.
Mr. Pettis,
Yes.
why don't we work out, while we're working out the kinks, why don't we do the consent agenda?
Okay. Okay, Mr. President, Board, moving on to the consent agenda.
Let him know that we're gonna wait and we'll come back to him once he gets it all, once we address the technology.
So, Mr. President, Board, and the consent, I do recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Are there any questions?
Here he's unmuted. Oh, no. Still muted.
Okay, Mr. Maldonado? Mr. Maldonado,
Yes, sir.
would you list the items that are to be approved tonight?
Okay, I have to open my agenda. I don't have it in front of me. Give me just
Mr. Maldonado, it's the bills and expenditures and the 24176 Carl Perkins.
the 2417, the bar for the Carl Perkins is just the carryover money from last year that we need to approve in this year's budget. And then we provided you with the June expenditures and payroll.
I see something about unliquidated obligations.
That's the Carl Perkins bar.
Okay, that's the bar.
Yeah,
Okay. I think that's,
pretty routine. Yeah.
yeah, just the extent of it. One moment, I'm still looking at something here. That's a TLC. And the payroll.
Yes, sir.
That's a short payroll. Okay, board members, these are the routine items that we typically will do on a consent agenda. The consent agendas are items that we designated as routine agenda items that we wish to have approved in one motion. And in the future, if any item does not, if any item is desired to be discussed by the board members, we can do so. But at this point in time, we're ready to entertain a motion to
Mr.
approve.
Why is the request 8804 and then the budget page on the back is 8441?
Mr. Pettis, Mr. Maldonado.
If you wait just one moment, let me open up the agenda and I'll be right with you.
The second page is 8441, but budget adjustment request is 8804.
Mm.
Is that a typo?
On the final figure?
Yeah, see the first page, budget request, budget adjustment request. It's after your peak one. After all the, do you see it? Go after
8804.
go to the peak one, past the peak one.
Oh, it's looking 8,804.
And you look on the other, on the second page, it says 8441.
Yep.
Do you see it?
Yeah. Like that.
And the redistribution on the third page is 8804.
So they're different figures.
What's the bar number?
Good question. Where is it?
2417601. Let me just pull that up real quick.
It's 24176 and it's function 1000,
Okay.
object 57332.
All right. Sorry about that. Let me just pull it.
Picture you don't?
I don't know. I'm afraid to touch anything there because it
Okay. Now he's on.
go to.
Mr. Maldonado, we're actually just doing the bar. We're not doing liquidated obligations.
Correct. That's what I'm pulling up right now, real fast.
Not a very big difference, but
Well, the unliquidated obligations is one document. The other is the actual bar. You are requesting, according to the board agenda, a bar.
Yes, bar number 001. And
So the budget adjustment amount doesn't match the,
is the budget adjustment 8,804?
yes.
Yeah, that's the bar that I need you approved.
And the question is, why is the amount on unliquidated obligations 8,441?
I don't see it on this bar. I'm looking. We can postpone this to the next meeting and I can answer that question for you, okay?
Yes.
It'll be perfectly fine. I'll answer that question for you.
Actually, I think all you're doing is the bar. You're not, the unliquidated obligations is a different matter. But so that's what we'll do. We'll have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the Carl Perkins bar. Am I correct, Mr. Pettis?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I recommend that the board approve the consent agenda and without the bar 24176.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
So moved by Emily Hunt, seconded by
Second.
Ron Ortiz to approve the consent agenda as presented. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dion Sandoval.
Yes.
Guy Archambo.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, board members. Mr. Pettis.
Yes,
I think
Mr. President.
we might be ready.
Yes, I believe we have Representative Garcia on connected now. Can you hear me all right?
Max,
Yes,
can you hear me?
you're on. Yes, can you hear us? Oh, no, he can't.
Mr. Garcia, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Stay it, leave it like it is.
Okay, don't touch it.
Don't touch anything. Mr. Garcia, thank you very, very much. Mr. Pettis, do you want to introduce again?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, board, it is Representative Eric Garcia, busy at the Roundhouse these days, or at least through Zoom. But there's a lot going on at the state, and I thought it'd be nice to have a connection, an update on the recent legislative session, and also we don't have the crystal ball, but we have some indications that I'd like Representative Garcia to let us know about from his perspective on what the outlook may or may not be.
Mr. Representative Garcia.
Yes,
welcome.
sir.
We thank you for participating in our meeting tonight, and the floor is yours. If we have any questions, hopefully we'll be able to have you answer them. But otherwise, you may proceed to talk to us about legislation.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, board members, thanks for having me on. It's an honor. At the special session, on the school part, you know, everybody's going to get a 1% raise. You already know that, right?
Yes.
Meeting on the session, a lot of stuff went on. You know, they introduced bills of lapel cameras, voting deals, and there was supposed to be a budget session, but it turned into a little bit more than that. We had a meeting with the governor today on Zoom, and I brought up the question, and I also talked to the superintendent earlier today about issues that you guys were going to be facing with in-home schooling or visual schooling, whatever you want to call it. And the big issues that are coming up is the cost to people. That's going to be a big issue. And I know you guys are supplying, I think, 1,200 laptops. And I got a paper from Santa Fe that says that you need 2,400 hotspots for the district. And Mr. Perez said that wasn't an accurate assumption. But anyway, what I brought up to the governor today was I asked her, Governor, this CARES Act is going to provide a lot of internet or Wi-Fi for a lot of people. And I asked the governor if there was anything that the state could do to help people with this Wi-Fi. It does no good to put Wi-Fi all over the state, right to your door, if you can't afford to put it inside the house. So a lot of people, this Wi-Fi is probably going to cost people $60, $70 a month. And that's the basic. So if you don't have $60 or $70 to put it inside your house, you're not going to get it. And that's why I asked the governor how we could help people actually pay for the Wi-Fi. Because I know that the schools are not going to pay for in-home Wi-Fi. And she said that there was things that she wants to look at with the CARES Act money to see if we could help people actually get the Wi-Fi service into their homes. Because to some people, $50 is nothing. And to some people, it's a matter of eating or not eating. And we have a lot of our kids on rural New Mexico, and we all know this, that are barely surviving. The families are barely surviving. Now we're going to impose more money into them. And not only that, they need Wi-Fi, they need cell phones, and some of our kids don't even have running water. So these are issues that we talked about today. And the governor also did say today that she wants to set up a meeting with tribal leaders and superintendents to address issues that we need to address now. What's happening in Santa Fe, there's a little bit of a disconnect. The administrative part and the legislative part kind of don't know what we don't know what the administrator is doing, and they don't know what we're doing. So we need to bridge that gap, and we're going to try to do that with the governor, and she was all for that. We also talked about unit value of our students, and they told us today that it shouldn't affect unit value even if they're at home or at the school, because Mr. Perez was concerned about that, and he mentioned something about $7,000 some per student, and he said if we lose 100 students or so, we're going to lose $1 million a year. And the Secretary of Education said today that that shouldn't be an issue, but we'll have to see about that. Okay. You know, we talked about impact aid today, and that affects us a lot too. And the governor said that she had, on the federal side of it, that she had filed a petition for, let me think of the word.
Appealed it.
I'm sorry?
She appealed the.
Yeah, she appealed it, but she said that the appeal, that she could get out of the appeal. It's not, once she appeal, it doesn't, she said she could get out of it. And that's a good thing, because we need to sit down and talk with the governor and legislators and people that are involved to take care of these problems. Because at the end of the day, if the appeal goes too long, the lawyers eat up all the money and the kids don't get anything. And it's just too expensive to be doing this. And this has been going on for what, 15, 20 years already? Anyway, that's basically what I got. You know, I want to hear what your problems are or how we can help you resolve some of these problems. Because there's going to be a lot of issues. There's going to be issues in busing. There's going to be issues in lunch. There's going to be issues on kids trying to get homeschooled. And now all this is going to come into effect, and we really need to address these issues now. Because we all know that this virus is not going to go away anytime soon. And if we don't start addressing the problems now, at the end of the day, we're going to be saying we should have taken care of these problems a month ago. And here we are, almost school time, and we don't even know what we're going to do. You know, and I don't know if you guys are wanting to bring all the kids back, some of the kids back, or how you're going to work it, but it is going to be really, really expensive, especially for the kids that we have to supply internet to at home, or cell phones, or laptops, or busing. Those are big issues that we got to face. I also asked if there was any help for districts on busing our kids. That's going to be another issue, because you can only bring so many kids into school at a time anyway. So, oh, and one more thing, this is really, really important. And Representative Lumstrong was on the conference call with the governor, and they talked about sweeps of money. The reality of it, we're going to be $1 billion short on the budget next year. And the real reality is, if you have money, it's more likely going to get swept. So I suggest that you guys do all the spending you can spend, because I know you have to have some reserves, but if you have too much reserves, you're going to wind up losing it. Because, you know, to overcome $1 billion shortfall is going to be really, really tough. Mr. Gamboa, Mr. Chairman, that's what I got for right now. You know, I'm sorry I can't give you more information because, you know, it's been a big disconnect to me. You know, and I told the Speaker of the House that we're disconnected from the leadership to the legislators. There's a disconnect, and you know, everybody goes through it. You guys probably go sometimes, you have a little distinct between one or the other, and it just makes for a hard day, you know. Mr. Ortiz, you need to put your mask on.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
You know-
Representative Garcia, appreciate your words. Mr. Pettis and board members, Mr. Pettis, do you want to respond to a few things to help acquaint the representative with what we're doing?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, you know, I'm here to help you guys. I really am. Whatever you guys need in the coming up, if I can help you out with that, I'll be more than glad to do it. You know, just, you know, you can get a hold of Ron, you can get a hold of me, and me and Ron are real good friends, and he's a good chairman, I mean, a board member, and his heart's in the right place. His heart's in for the kids. And I think all you board members have the same mindset. You know, I do. It's all about our kids at the end of the day.
Thank you, Representative Garcia. Mr. Pettis, do you have any
Yes, sir.
comments to make to clarify?
Yes, sir. So, Representative Garcia, I always take an opportunity to give some messages for you to take back to Santa Fe and to the lawmakers. We, all of us are in a bad place as far as economy, funding, those kind of things. There are some basic things that we need to make sure that we have in place. We know that there was a federal judge ruling for impact aid against the state, where those impact aid districts, the four of us, Gallup, Central Consolidated, SUNY, and us, and Dulce to a lesser degree, we stand to lose or gain some money depending on how that is going to work out. But there was a judgment on it. From what I understand is that the state government has claimed that this has been taken care of through the SEG, but it really hasn't. So we still are going to stand up for continuing to push for the full impact aid funding for each of our school districts, in which the judgment has been made. So we'll continue that. We have taken a proactive approach, kind of switching to our reentry plan and answers to your questions. We are moving into a 30-day, basically a 30-day incremental approach in which we're easing into the school year slowly. We do want to get as many kids at the schools as early and as carefully and thoughtfully as possible. So we're looking at the first few weeks as totally virtual, so we can iron out some of the kinks and make sure that the coast is clear and everything is safe and in order before we bring our students back. As far as needs, you did mention the Chromebooks and things like that. We have a technology team that's been working hard with the service providers in the area. We need some long-term, well, actually we need it now, but the things that are needed in the community are long-term type of projects like building towers. Those type of things are just not going to happen overnight. You mentioned buses. You know, when you run into a different configuration and you're running more rounds and more routes with the buses, there's very possible that we're going to need more buses and more drivers when that comes about. Hotspots, we're on that. We've ordered several, but of course, a hotspot doesn't do much good if you don't have a cell phone service and those types of things. So there's plenty of issues out there in connectivity. There's plenty of issues out there as far as childcare. We are going to need money because, you know, in this different world, even our classrooms have to be organized and rearranged differently. We need protective hardware and plexiglass guards, those kind of things in the school. These are things that we had not counted on or anticipated, just like everybody else in until the recent months. So we cannot stop pushing for making sure that we have all of these basic things in place. So whenever we have the opportunity, we were fortunate enough to get a Chromebook for every student right now, but we also have to think of the future. Usually these Chromebooks, and as you know, technology, laptops and those kind of things, after 2 or 3 years go by, it's almost time to replace them. So it sounds good that we have 3,400 Chromebooks for all of our students today, but we're going to need to reinvest in replacing those in the very near future. So we're also, I mentioned you mentioned that it's going to be a tough year for the state next year. It's $1 billion short. We did the math on that, and it's probably going to lead to, after it all shakes out, probably a 6% decrease for our district. We're looking at probably a $2 million for, at least the best of our prediction is probably a $2 million clawback in the middle of the school year next year. We have to take that into account. So when it's all said and done, we want to continue to ask for your support and helping us keep the pressure on to make sure that our students have the best that they possibly can have. There's still inequities across the state. You know, you see a lot of schools in the affluent areas that have nice shiny things, and I think we want to do our best to make sure that the students of Grand Cibola County schools are up in the running and close to having just as good or better than the rest. So thank you, Representative Garcia, and I appreciate your constant support.
Pettis, would you clarify the 30-day increment so that we understand what's happening in this increment?
Yes. So Representative Garcia, in our reentry plan, there are districts throughout the entire state, as you know, that have different approaches. Some are starting with 25% of the students coming back in groups and breaking them into groups. Some are coming with the 50% approach day one, in which you have half of your students coming in group A, Monday, Tuesday, group B, Wednesday, Thursday. To date, there's probably 100 different approaches in bringing the students back to the schools. As our reentry team worked through this for the last several months, we kept our eye on the COVID virus itself. We kept our eye on what other districts are doing. We kept our eye on the PED guidance. So we had just a multitude of factors that we had to consider in bringing students back. So it finally landed, as we get closer to the school starting, that the most logical approach that we can all agree on is to take a careful approach in which we will start the school year August 10th with total remote. And when I say 30-day incremental approach, that means 30 days. We have an option of switching that to, we have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and there's even more that we've talked about. But if the world goes perfectly and everything is working right and things are getting better, we would get together, and at the getting close to the end of the 30 days, we would evaluate the team, the board, the stakeholders, communities. We would discuss and say, okay, is the coast clear? Can we come in with 25% of our students on day 31? And if the answer is yes, we move on to moving to 25%. Then we go another 30 days. Then after that 30 days, we take a survey, took a look around, look at the environment, talk to our stakeholders, talk to the board. And if everything's going perfectly well, we move on to the 50%, bringing 50% of the students face-to-face. Okay. That is the incremental approach I talk about. However, I always like to add that this is a flexible plan in which we give ourselves the option of moving forward or moving more restrictive at any point. But we have to give it some kind of structure, therefore calling it a 30-day incremental approach. There are some districts who say we're absolutely going to do 50%, and that's our story, and we're sticking to it. You kind of back yourself in a corner, and then you can't adjust it after that. I like to think that we can be on our toes and make the best decisions based on the data surrounding us, based on the environment surrounding us, based on the virus, the recommendations from Department of Health, recommendations from Center for Disease Control, recommendations from the New Mexico Public Education Department, and also stay in good touch with my colleagues throughout the state and other superintendents, and weigh that in as well. We're in a very different situation here in northwest corner of New Mexico. We have a whole lot more cases than down in the southeast. So you can see why other people might be a little bit more free and more apt to bring in more students immediately. Whereas here, we, based on our neighbors and based on the cases in our area, if we're gonna be careful, we have to take that into consideration, just the area that we're residing in. So it's very different throughout the state. Weighing in all the factors, we feel like we're making the best decisions we possibly can to have this approach for Grand Cibola County Schools. And I have to say that I also know that we're not gonna satisfy 100% of the people, the stakeholders, families, teachers. The reality of it is we have to gauge everything, take all the information we have, make the best possible decision, and move forward. And I'm always asking for support from our community, our teachers, our staff, our pueblos, our tribe, our businesses. You know, I think that we can, if we work together, we can make the best of this. And I think we are in a better place than we were a few months ago. And I think we're in a better place than a lot of other places in the state. So that's what I think.
Mr. Perez. Board members, any thoughts you might want to share with Representative Garcia?
I have a comment for Representative Garcia. I had texted you on the issue that we're having with some of our teachers in daycare issues and problems. Some of the daycare facilities in the area are full to their capacity because of the COVID. Their numbers are lower than what they usually are. And I had texted you to see if the state could look into some of these issues for our teachers, because some of these teachers come from out of town, out of state, I should say, not out of town, but from out of state and a few miles, from Santa Fe, Albuquerque. So we get different teachers coming to our district, and they're running into these problems because they don't have family that live here, so they don't know where to turn to. So, and I just got a number of calls before this meeting to see if I would address and see if you could give us any kind of update on any kind of daycare services for our teachers.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting, like I said, in Cloudcroft this last weekend, and I brought that issue up to the committee of childcare for our teachers' kids. Because, they're struggling just as bad as everybody else is, and they're looking into that. The director of finance, David Abbey, said he would get back to me and give me an update on what we could do to help these teachers. Because it is a big issue, because not only our kids, they have kids too, so they have the same problem. But it was brought up in the committee, and as soon as I hear something from that committee, I will relay it back to you guys. Another thing that I heard in the committee, and I don't know how you're gonna handle this, it was just mentioned on the money part. How are you handling the part of your coaches that you're not using anymore? Where is this going to? Because it was brought up, well, why are they paying so much money for a coach who doesn't have a football team no more? Those are issues that were brought up. They might come back up again during the session because the funding is not going to be there. So that's just a thought of what do you guys plan on doing with that? Are you going to keep him employed full time, or what's going to happen there?
Yeah, there's a question. There's a lot of issues around it. One, we typically don't pay the coaches until after the completion of the sport. That's not the only issue. If we don't have fans at the in the stadiums, we don't have the ticket money, and then how do you pay the refs? And there's another set of issues. But there are just a multitude of issues surrounding the athletics. We're watching and Sally Marcus has been addressing our superintendent's group pretty regularly. I know she has her hands full in shifting sports and that kind of thing. But as far as the pay issue, Dwayne, I think you're on. Mr. Toivan, yeah. So I don't know if you have any more to add with that as far as the athletic stipends. He must have stepped away.
Mr. Chairman, on that last question, it wasn't addressed to anybody in particularly, but it was mentioned about paying your coaches, not much of referees, but some of your coaches are teachers or your directors that are athletic directors. That was just mentioned, and I just thought I'd bring it up to you so we can give you a heads up on that. Because come down to funding at the end of the year in January, that might come back up again.
Thank you. Any other board members, any comments? The one thing that I'd like to say, board members, is to Representative Garcia, I wanted to make sure you understand the 30-day idea that we have. And what we're saying is that we need to spend some time, again, when we get close to the end of the 30-day, to collect all the information, input, data, getting a sense of how the health environment is, communicate with our tribes, communicate with our communities to get a sense of their concerns about moving forward. And then we will make a decision collectively. The board will be presented with the direction we're going to take. It may be that we just continue with virtual learning for another 30 days. So all the 30-day is meant to do is to give us a milepost where we say, let's review the situation and determine what is the best option for us, whether we stick with this or whether we move on to slowly bring in more students. But that's going to be done after we have collected all the information that we need that will help us make that kind of a decision. And that, especially with tribes, they have their specific sovereign requirements for safeguarding their children. They have to follow their tribal policies about how to do that, and so we have to work in close tandem with them to assure we all assure ourselves that the environment is and the health environment is safe, and that their children are able to leave the reservation Indian lands and come to our schools. We have nearly 49% of our students are Native American, so we have to be mindful of those kids from all the way from Pruitt all the way to Sita and Cibola. So we have a large district, and we appreciate you listening to us And we probably would enjoy doing this again to make sure that we all are on the same page when it comes to the education of our children and the funding of our programs here. Mr. Pettis, Mr. Representative Garcia, anything else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You know, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of how you're approaching the problem. Instead of jumping into it and hurting somebody, your mindset is good. I appreciate that very much because, you know, like you said, at the end of the 30 days, then we'll make decisions. Well, you guys will make decisions as to what's the next step. Because you get too many people in there and then we have a problem and then everything goes bad on us. So I really, really appreciate the thoughtfulness of what you guys are trying to do. And like I said earlier, if you guys need anything that I can help you with, that's what I'm here for.
Mr. Pettis, any board members? If not, then this concludes our first opportunity to have you address the board under these circumstances. You've been with us before, but we always will welcome you back under any conditions and extend our greetings to your family too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. I look forward to working with you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you. You may leave. Mr. Pettis, let's continue.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, board. Next up, we have the superintendent's report and reentry updates. I anticipate that this will be a regular item on the board agenda so we can continue to keep everyone updated on how that's developing. It is by no means a document that's supposed to be finished at one point and signed, sealed, delivered. It is a document that is going to require continuous development as the different things develop around us, as we get new news and more information, more research around all these things that are happening. Last time some of the groups met, for example, one of the groups addressed transportation, mail distribution, and those types of things. And I'll have them talk a little bit about that. A lot of the information that they sifted through and sorted out will be included in the reentry plan as we proceed. The other things that are going to be added to the reentry plan as we learn more every day is the process and procedures when a school has an active case of the virus, positive. If a student, for example, tests positive at a school, what is the process? What are the procedures? What's the communication piece to that? Right now, I know that the latest I've heard is that if a person in a school tests positive, we may be required to close the school for 3 days and sanitize the school following very strict sanitization processes. And that's just one. There's a lot of what ifs around that. And we could probably go talk about that all night and never run out of the what ifs situations, but we will have, and we do have some basic processes and procedures for all of the, for the district, and then now for the schools. And I just want to clarify something. Every school is working on this reentry plan as well, but I want to make it absolutely clear that there's only one plan. The reentry plan is the Grand Cibola County Schools reentry plan. What the schools are working on is procedures at the specific school sites to support the district plan. That has to be done at the school sites. The school sites also will have their, they know that they will have a communication blast to parents. Every school has a slightly different checkout system for their Chromebooks, for their school supplies. So there's a lot of details that are still coming. I believe Mr. Maldonado and Ms. Sanchez are working on some quick guides, soon to be published, maybe at the end of this week, where there's a quick guide for parents, quick guide for students, and quick guide for teachers that lines up with the reentry plan, so that rather than having to go through the whole plan, each of those groups knows the basics of what they need to do in that group to get started with the school year. Mr. Maldonado or Ms. Sanchez, did you want to add anything on the quick guides?
Sure, I can add, and they're detailing out, we have about 20 quick guides that have come up from the question and answer. And if I could add to the site plans, site protocols. The site protocols line up hand in hand with a quick guide. So the principals have submitted them. Mr. Perez, myself, and the team will review them and approve every entry protocol to make sure it aligns with the district plan. As he identified, it was one plan. And so principals are creating a sense of urgency and in some cases some excitement because all the protocols are falling in place and they're lining up with needs, which creates our need to create a quick guide. And so they're running very quickly and we have a lot of guides. Did you want to add anything else, Mr. Maldonado?
I think that the focus of the quick guides is to give parents and those who have not been involved in the reentry plan at all a really easy to follow step-by-step. What do I do next? What do I expect? And I think that's really the purpose of the quick guides, is to get them up and running so that if they want more detail, they can refer to the full plan at some point. But really, it's just to make them a lot more comfortable to answer some quick questions for them. And I think that's going to be really important, and it's an important communication piece from the district pushing out to others.
Thank you. Along with that, Mr. President, Board, I'd like to also include Mr. Vance Lee and Jerry Nodal, Ms. Nodal. If you could please share the piece that you're now including from your perspective on transportation.
Good evening, members of the board and Mr. Perez. We worked last week on several aspects of, we worked on transportation, meal distribution, technology, and health services. And for the transportation piece, we looked at what different bus capacities would be based on possible changes coming from the state. Right now, state is recommending social distancing, so to speak. Students are allowed to sit 2 to a seat, which would allow 46 passengers on a bus. If we follow through with that, then members of the same household will be encouraged to sit together. Also, for increased ventilation, the windows will be open as much as possible. The buses will be sanitized or cleaned by the drivers 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on meal distribution days, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they will come into the yard to be sanitized by misters that are being purchased. And that will be done by my shop staff. So the buses will be cleaned 5 days a week during this first process. And as we move into the hybrid, we will revisit that, and they will have to be cleaned after every route. And then when we're still doing meal distribution, so they will be sanitized three times a day, basically. Also, we discussed what would happen if a child presented symptoms at the bus stop, And we didn't really come to a full resolution on that because there's just so many legalities. So we're waiting for some guidelines that will hopefully come from the PED or from state transportation that will allow us to further develop a protocol should that happen. When we start, the drivers will be teaming up and doing meal distribution. We're working on the routes now, and we're hoping that we don't have to take too many assistants for EAs from the schools so that they can stay in the schools and help their teachers in the schools. We're working on a plan to put 2 bus drivers on each bus and deliver the meals to the consolidated areas, and we will deliver those right now to only Grant Cibola County school students. But we're prepared should those guidelines come down that changes that back to the seamless summer program. We worked on so much, I can't think of all the details right now. That's the biggest part of transporting and sanitizing the buses I have to offer. Have any questions for me?
Thank you. And Mr. President, Board, these are, without going through the entire plan, these are just, what we're speaking about now is just some of the work that's gone on the add-ons to further develop the reentry plan. There's still many other aspects, as I mentioned, the medical side and the protocols for active cases at the school sites. That's still being detailed out. And that's another, I think, another positive about not having all the students in immediately. It gives a little time to be very careful, look at all the data, and do all the research on making sure that we're making the right decisions about this. So still.
Pettis, may I ask a question or make a comment?
Sure.
Mr. Pettis, this is, it's, as I listen to you and as I listen to the presentations, it's extremely challenging for everybody to recognize we have to do 2 things. One is to address our first weeks of virtual learning. And so the quick books or quick, I forgot what you call them, need to ensure that the parents are clearly understanding of how virtual learning will be delivered for their student. What gets complicated is that we also must address simultaneously the things that transportation and the other departments are having to address. What do we do when we begin to transport students? And we have to be very explicit about that. So I think parents should be informed clearly that there are 2 parts to this. One is our delivery of education through virtual learning and what is expected of the household and what is expected of the student and what we expect of our teachers in ensuring that the virtual learning will be a successful one that we monitor. At the same time, they would, on the other hand, another part of that information you provide, that it would clearly explain to them explain to the parents and the community how we're going to activate the return of students back to the classroom in person. That seems to be taking a lot of our time. And my emphasis is basically on the quality of education, no matter whether it's online or whether it is in person. So I just encourage us to ensure to make the parents fully understand what's going to happen starting August 10 through the next days of virtual learning when that occurs. This is just my suggestion to you as you go through this. I'm no doubt you already are doing that, but it's just a concern that we have to make sure that instruction and learning is occurring effectively to the extent possible.
Okay. Yes, sir, and I'm happy to say that a lot of the things that you speak about, Mr. President, are in the works with the quick guides and the school side communications, and there's a lot more to come. It's been very frustrating to have to wait for guidance from the state to make sure that our plan is in line with the state. It's been very frustrating with the timelines that we've had to get the information out. We have intentionally not exploded with the communication because it's not approved. We didn't even have this approved by the board until last week. Now we're able to begin to work on our communication piece, and there's a lot more to come. I think I'm happy to say that parents will know what's happening. We have training lined up specifically for parents available. We'll have on the website so that they'll know how to assist their students with the Google Classroom. We've had training for the teachers that's gone on all summer, which many teachers have participated. We still have more to come. We have some required training for some of the teachers as they come back on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. The basics of protocols in order to make the best possible virtual learning experience that we can have. We are, whether we like it or not, we all of a sudden we're in a very competitive world. We have some parents that are tempted with commercial programs that are out there throughout the state. We have the temptation of parents wanting to homeschool through the state homeschool program. But I'd urge everyone to first take a look at the option that your local school has to offer with your local teachers. We're not forcing anybody to come back to school. All parents will always have the option of doing the online version. And that online version would not look anything like it did the last quarter. And I think I can speak for most districts with that. We were suddenly hit with a surprise, no time to prepare, and we had to make things work through the remainder of that school year. Subsequently, we have had some time to train, we have had some time to plan, and we have had some time to structure. Our intention is to go into the school year day one, fully structured, high expectations, and we are not changing our emphasis, our rigor, and our expectations with the academics. The only thing that's changed dramatically is the platform and the delivery method. Otherwise, we are continuing with our schedules. We're continuing with our PLCs with the teachers. We're continuing with our meetings with the principals. We're continuing with our instructional coaches getting together on Fridays and planning out how we can support the teachers to better support the students. All of that structure and accountability remains in place. So we fully intend to have a quality experience with all of the things that have been handed to us. We intend to continue with being the best that we can be.
Anything else, Mr. Perez?
That's all I have. I just want to mention that connectivity, there are challenges. It remains. That's one of our biggest challenges. And I've talked to Governor Herrera, Governor Bayo. I've talked to our legislators. That is an issue, and I think it's an issue in other places, and we haven't yet resolved it. Connectivity and childcare, and as we spoke about just a while ago, there's no simple solution. We're going to have to work together and be creative in the best way we can to get through until somehow someone will help us with that. I've even gone as far as asking if we can, develop our own childcare. But that's that's frowned upon because we have a lot to do and we have a focus. Being entrepreneurs in that area may not be in our best interest, but we do need it.
Well, that's also the funding that we receive from the state and federal government are for specific restricted purposes, and that may not fit their requirements, and unfortunately.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Members of the board, if there are no other questions, I think we have concluded our report with Mr. Perez. And I thank you very much, Mr. Perez, for making the presentation. We will continue to do so. The board is very interested, obviously, in what it is that's going on. We apologize to the community, to the public, that this is happening so quickly. But the timelines that the state gave us were very strict. They asked us to submit these things on the 15th, and there was even information that we were receiving very late in getting the required information into our plan. So the team, while it may have been working in the past weeks on this thing, we still did not have an official approved board plan. And some school districts actually rolled out their plan and found out they had to revise their plan due to changing circumstances. And most plans have not been approved by the state yet, and we're still all undergoing review. So if we were to wait until the 1st of August to further refine the plan, it would have been far too late. Our staff, our administration needed the time to further to develop the plan as we are doing right now, and get the information out accurately and completely for the parents and for the tribes and for the communities, so they'll know what it is that we're doing. We want to hurry, but we also want to be very smart about what it is that we're trying to accomplish with these few weeks that we have left. It's so challenging. Sometimes it's so scary for all of our families, and we just ask that we try to communicate as much as we can. Clearly, if you have any issues or concerns, please communicate those with the superintendent, and we look forward to a year that we will try to achieve our goals that we have set for your students, for you. And we wish that the teachers and the rest of the staff good health, stay safe, be careful, and continue to work as effectively as you have been doing in these days to come. It's a lot. I'm amazed. Mr. Perez.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Announcements. As you see there, August 4th, new teacher orientation. August 5th, teachers return to school. August 10th, virtual learning. School begins on August 10th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Emily Hunt Daly. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Seconded by Ron Ortiz to adjourn the meeting at 6:54. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. You may all leave the Zoom.